Antifa radicals in Berkeley, California disrupted a Turning Point USA event outside of UC Berkeley, punched a conservative in the face.
Yep.
The conservative gets arrested. But our policy prescription is the administration has to dismantle the left-wing terror networks, whether it's Antifa, other organized militant groups. They have to actually get mugshots, case numbers, inmate numbers, the tangible evidence that these left-wing terror networks, which are essentially saying that we can control the streets in places like Portland, we can veto peaceful conservative speech in places like Berkeley, we have to ensure that they can no longer do so and can no longer exert control through violence.
I mean, this one's actually interesting because on the one hand, I think the administration has done more on this than I expected. Like, I didn't anticipate that they would designate Antifa a terrorist network. That's a huge step in the right direction. And this drives at a point, I think, which is consistent for this whole conversation, which is here and there, the administration is making the right moves and or saying the right things. What's missing is the conspicuous action so that, your average American, let alone Trump supporter, but just your average American goes, yeah, I don't like Antifa, and the administration is doing something about it, and that's good. And so we need, like you said, we need mugshots. We need them to take this terrorist designation and do something with it, and or explain to the American people what they are doing with it. Now, I understand like some of this might be sensitive. These are ongoing investigations, and if they're building out these massive RICO cases that might look like what they did for the mob in the 80s, that's going to take a decade. And I want to allow time for that to happen. But in the meantime, there needs to be something a little bit more. An example, do you remember the bike lock guy? Remember in 2017, his name was Eric Clanton. He hit a Trump supporter over the head with a bike lock, gashed his head open. He got a slap on the wrist. What is he doing now? He's back teaching at like DVC or something, one of these community colleges or whatever. The other thing that we need to put pressure on is these institutions that are harboring these people. And that's not something I think we've thought hard enough about. We've seen, and this goes back, of course, to the Weather Underground. This is something, Chris, you and I have talked about at length. This comes up over and over. You look at the way that the left rewards and celebrates their radical activists. If you do a good job planting bombs at the Pentagon, as the Weather Underground did, you get sinecures at major universities. You get speaking gigs. You get massive publicity. Okay, you become a public intellectual for the left. There are ways of applying pressure to these institutions to prevent them from doing this. And I know that Trump has threatened to withhold funding to the universities for like the anti-Semitism stuff. Well, let's do it for this. Let's go look and see where some of these known Antifa activists and organizers are working and apply pressure to these universities to do something about it and make an example out of these people. They are terrorists. They are causing violence. They are disrupting the basic function of our sort of public apparatus. We need to do something. So let's do something. Please do something.
Yeah, we have to do something, of course. But the question here is between symbol and reality. And so let's just take this case at UC Berkeley, this recent event. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, released a great tweet. She said that Antifa is an existential threat to our nation. The Department of Justice is going to take every action possible to dismantle these networks. The president has designated Antifa a domestic terror organization, et cetera, et cetera. But color me skeptical. Why hasn't the person, why hasn't UC Berkeley been defunded? Just say, hey, we're withholding funds until you can establish a basic environment of civil discourse. Why isn't, I expect that this will happen, but it hasn't happened quite yet.
Let's get into it though. Why not? Okay, you're like, I don't mean to put the pressure on you to do something
Put it
personally.
on me, yeah.
But you've been closer to these levers of power than most of us. You've seen what's going on in DC, not as a formal like official of any kind, but you're there. You've seen how the sausage gets made, or you've been in the sausage factory. Why isn't there something happening? Is this a personnel problem? Is this a follow-through problem? Is this a lack of will? Is this have something to do with the judiciary gunking up, the gears? Like, what is going on?
There's a high level problem, and then there's a middle range administrative problem. The high level problem is that certain cabinet officials are doing an amazing job. They're extremely aggressive, and others seem to be more in it for the prestige, more in it for the spotlight, more in it for the perks of the office. And so we have to get people that are willing to fight and willing to play hard, and it has to be backed up at the highest level of the government. There's incredible people. I mean, if Stephen Miller kind of had the run of the show, Berkeley would be like defunded in perpetuity. Yeah. It'd be fantastic. Yeah. But look, as you go down, people are a bit more cautious. People are a bit more tame. People are a bit more circumspect. But there's a deeper problem if we want to talk about these radical networks writ large. Okay, you make UC Berkeley a target. You make some of these NGOs a target. You have investigations into individual incidents. But if you actually say we want to have a systematic effort to dismantle left-wing terror networks, the fact is that your idea, well, maybe they're doing these complex RICO investigations. They're not doing that. There's no evidence that they're doing that from my reporting inside the FBI. The opposite is true. The FBI for the past 30 years, and especially for the past 10 years, the directive from the top and the directive from managers in the various regional offices has been focus on right-wing, neo-Nazi, white supremacist, domestic terror. There isn't a equivalent domestic terror problem on the left. And so even in the Northwest, I have friends that were, sources within the FBI here. I'd ask them, like, what's the deal? Are you guys going after the Antifa groups in Seattle? Are you guys going after the left-wing terror networks in the Northwest? And the answer for many years was no. We were told not to do it, not to touch it, not to organize on it. And to the extent that we're doing we had BLM riots. They took over a whole city block with the Chop Chaz affair. Yeah. And it was extremely light touch from law enforcement. And so the entrenched culture of the agency, and as you go down administratively, you have to make sure that the directive that comes from the FBI director's office, the attorney general's office, you have to make sure that it means something at that regional level, at that agent level. And I am not convinced that the current leadership, that the current kind of structure, the current techniques that they're using has sufficiently done that. I'd love to be proven wrong. They still have 3 years. But I think that at this point, we have to be skeptical, and we have to judge not on potentially what's happening behind the scenes. We have to judge on outcomes.